What's going on, everybody? Yonko Saint or Just Saint here, and today, as you can tell by the title, I'm following up on a promise. So let me know what you guys think. If this video does well, I might think about doing my top 5 games of 2024. In my most recent video, the top 3 survival games of 2024, I said if it did well, I would make my top 5 video. So here we are today with my top 5 video. And I'm not gonna lie, I know I'm a little late, but with all the announcements coming out recently, I was really back and forth of what games I did want to put on and what I didn't want to put on. So before we get into it, I want to go over a couple things just to clear up any confusion about the list. So first and foremost, the 3 games that were mentioned in my top 3 survival games of 2024 aren't going to be mentioned on this list, although they probably either would have been all in the top 10 or at least 2 of them be in the top 5. So if you want to go check out those games, I'm going to leave the link down below and it's going to be linked at the end of the video. Secondly, I want it to be known that obviously this is my opinion. If you think I missed any games, let me know down below in the comments. It could be for a number of reasons. Maybe I just didn't hear about it. With all the announcements going on right now, it's so easy that I could have missed a game. And with all that said, I'm not saying these games are going to be good in any regards. I just think that these games have potential, or with the trailers that we've seen, it's got me excited enough to actually be hyped for the game. So in no particular order, here are my top 5 games that I am most excited for in 2024. Kicking it off with a potential banger, at number 5 we have Avowed. Avowed is a first-person fantasy RPG made by Obsidian. The game takes place in the same universe as Obsidian's 2015 title, Pillars of Eternity. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I had no clue what Pillars of Eternity was, so after a little bit digging, it honestly kind of reminded me of like a top-down D&D game, kind of like the older Baldur's Gates, not the new one. I typically don't like playing games with previous titles just because the story can get confusing and sometimes I feel like I'm just missing out on something. I couldn't find anything on Avowed being a sequel, and it more so just takes place in the same universe, but who knows, if Avowed delivers, it might just be enough to get me to try Pillars of Eternity just to see if there's a larger story at play. From the second I saw the trailer, I literally could not help and think of Skyrim. From one axe in one hand to spells in another, handling 2 spells or weapons, it gave me a sense of Skyrim combat, but with a vibrant twist in the world. If Obsidian can deliver that craft as you go experience, I think Avowed will be a hit for sure. Avowed has no current release date, but it's scheduled for 2024 and it's going to be releasing on PC, Xbox Series X, and Series S. At number 5, we have Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. Now, I know, Shadow of the Erdtree is not its own game. It's just an expansion DLC. But with what I'm expecting from this DLC, it might as well be its own game. Now, I completely understand if not everybody feels the same way. Even though Elden Ring was a major success, there's still some people who just don't see it in the same light. So for that reason, I added a couple bonus games at the end of the video. So if you stay around to the end of the video, I'm sure that you will find a game that you enjoy or at least think is interesting. So going back to Elden Ring, not much is known from the expansion just because FromSoft has been very hush-hush about the topic. So I thought I would just go over some of the things I'm expecting to see based on past DLC from like Dark Souls and stuff like that. But again, it's all speculation, so take it with a grain of salt. But I am using, what they've done in the past to kind of base some of my opinions of what I think it's going to be. Now, it's pretty obvious that we're going to get a new playable area just because that's what FromSoft usually does, and just looking at the title picture of Shadow of the Erdtree, it's somewhere that we definitely haven't been yet. Now, I'm sure we can expect the usual, like new weapons, new armor, maybe even new magic, but what I'm really expecting at this point is like a 15 to maybe 25 hour experience, basically a small game-sized DLC, kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy. It wasn't a super long game, but it was a great game. I'm expecting kind of the same thing from this DLC. And honestly, I could go days and days speculating on what it's going to be, but we have a whole list to get to, so let's go ahead and just move on to the next thing. With no release date, we're thinking Shadow of Erdtree is going to come at some point in 2024, with a lot of speculation pointing towards February, just because that's around the 2-year anniversary of Elden Ring. Sticking with the same genre, at number 3 we have Black Myth: Wukong. Black Myth: Wukong was originally announced around 3 years ago, but didn't get its North American release announcement till about 2023 during the Game Awards. The studio behind this game is a Chinese indie studio named Game Science. This was a pretty big shock because it was relatively unknown, and their only other game that I could find was a game called Art of War Red Tides, and to be honest, I had no clue what this game was, so I did a little digging once again, and I found Art of War Red Tides is a real-time strategy multiplayer game, something completely different from this game. So even with that said, everything that Game Science has showed us about this game has been amazing. I have no bad things to say. Black Myth Wukong is a Souls-like where you take control of Sun Wukong, and backed by the power of Unreal Engine 5 and stunning combat mechanics, Black Myth Wukong looks to be full of heart-pounding action. This game also shows a very interesting mechanic where you can shapeshift into different animals and creatures. I think it's a pretty cool mechanic, something that separates it from other Souls games. With the vast amount of Souls-like games coming out after the release of Elden Ring, and even before that with the release of Dark Souls 3, I think Black Myth Wukong can separate itself with these interesting mechanics. From trailers to early playtests, I think this game has a lot going for it, but we won't know for sure until the release on August 20th, 2024, releasing on PC, PS5, and Xbox. So I'm just gonna come clean and say it, I lied. I said this was in no particular order, but I did save these last two because, man, were these top two tough. This was basically Battle of the IPs. I'm super excited for both of these games. I think they're both going to amount to a lot of things. At number 2, we have Star Wars Outlaws. Star Wars Outlaws is the latest in the Star Wars open world, finally stepping away from the Jedi. You play as a scoundrel named kbeatz in this open world action adventure game. You are accompanied by a little companion named Nix. He basically looks like he's going to be doing all the stuff that the Force would do, like pulling levers, move stuff, puzzles, and even stealth attacks. Basically, he's just there to make up for the lack of Force. In this game, you will have 5 explorable planets, with the game boasting a smooth ship to speeder to ground game. Personally love Star Wars, and honestly I can be a little bit biased sometimes towards it, but I think me putting this at number 2 kind of shows that I am going in it with for sure a critical eye. Now, I'm not trying to say that I think this game will fail or anything like that. There are just some red flags that as a consumer I feel like I should pay attention to. Same thing with you guys. I feel like you guys should pay attention to these things. First and foremost, it's made by Ubisoft. Now, if you haven't heard about Ubisoft before, I mean, it's kind of the running joke of the internet with games at this point. Now, being that it's Ubisoft, I think it can personally be either a hit or a miss. I don't really see Ubisoft doing any in-betweens lately. It just kind of seems they either make a good game or they don't. Simple. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Ubisoft has delivered recently, especially with this new Prince of Persia, but what I'm most afraid about is that this just ends up being a space Far Cry. I will give Ubisoft credit. I am glad we are stepping away from Jedi. As much as I love the Jedi, I feel like Star Wars is much more than that, and we're finally getting that crime game that we've been waiting for. I'm looking at you, Bounty Hunter game. I've been waiting for you. Personally, a lot of what they've shown, I've been pretty impressed about. I really like this whole space to ground to speeder combat. It kind of looks like they saw what Starfield did and kind of said, you know, we want to be better than that. We don't want to run into that same mess that they had over there, even though I think Starfield was a pretty good game. You know, it wasn't that bad, people. But regardless, I'm pretty optimistic of what this game has to offer, so we will just have to wait for a release. And right now there's no scheduled release, but they said it's planned for late 2024. Man, this next game, I can't even tell y'all how excited I am. So at number 1, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, aka Budokai Tenkaichi 4, baby. Let's go, baby. We are finally getting it in 2024. It's been long awaited, and it is here. I cannot tell you the hours I would spend on this game as a kid. It was really the first game that I remember that I just played it non-stop as soon as I got home from school till the time I went to bed. No homework, nothing, just straight Budokai Tenkaichi, giving everybody the work. If you aren't familiar with this game, it's a Dragon Ball Z, surprise, 3D arena fighter game. But honestly, man, even the old games, had such deep rosters. You could play as anybody from the show pretty much. Like, it was just insane the amount of characters that they would deliver. All we really have is a trailer right now and a soon-to-be release date of 2024. Everybody's assuming that it's gonna be summer because Bandai does this weird thing where apparently they show trailers and then release 6 months later, whatever. Just take it with a grain of salt. We might see it in summer. Now, I really don't want to see a couple things in this game. For one, it's paid character DLC. Off the top of my head, I can think of a game that I paid for for like 4 characters, and I don't even get to use them anymore because that game just doesn't exist. I'm looking at you, Jump Force. Another thing is just servers. If the game's focus is going to be multiplayer or story single player, at least make the game function. I understand that we're finally going to UE5, which looked absolutely beautiful, but a lot of this was fighting with your friends, fighting on the couch, and they've removed couch co-op. So I'm gonna need those servers. Basically, all I'm asking for is that if they take out couch co-op, at least give us some attention to the single player audience, give us a pretty rich story, maybe even a unique story. We're tired of playing like all the same sagas just over and over and over again. And then for the multiplayer side, just give us working servers. Now, I understand Dragon Ball spans many different series, and it would be a tedious task just to add everybody. From the looks of it, it's going to be super heavy, as in Dragon Ball Super, just because we see the Wolf Brothers and all that. I am assuming that we'll see characters from like GT and everything like that, but it's just going to be the more prominent characters. Like I mentioned earlier, Sparking Zero doesn't currently have a release date, but it is slated for 2024 with a lot of speculation pointing to the summer. If you made it this far, I just want to say thank you, and I have a bonus 4 games for you guys. I wanted to put these guys on the list and make it top 10, but since I did the top 3 survival games, I was just like, let's just make it top 5 and be done with it. So if you include these 5 that I just gave you, the 4 I'm about to give you, and then 3 for a top 3, that is 12 games I am excited for in 2024. So make sure you check out the last video and stay tuned for these. So I'm gonna kind of go quickly through these, not spend as much time as I did the other 5. So with that said, at the first honorable mention, we have Tekken 8. Now, if you don't know what Tekken is, I don't know what to really tell you. It's just as famous as Mortal Kombat when it comes to fighting games, but Tekken 8 is gonna change the game by jumping to Unreal 5. For some of you, that might not mean anything, it being on Unreal 5, but for me personally, someone who's never been really big on fighting games just because I'm not the best at them, I care more for the story, this kind of attracted me. I saw the Unreal 5 and the footage that they had for the trailer, and I was like kind of stunned, like wow, I might actually have to pick this up and try this. Tekken's release date is right around the corner, with it coming out January 26, 2024, releasing for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. The next honorable mention is a survival game that barely missed the cutoff for my top 3 survival games, and that is Palworld. Palworld is like a survival Pokemon game, but with basically if you just took the original Pokemon IP and had Westerners make it. I'm joking, but no, seriously. Palworld is a survival creature collector game, basically like I said, Pokemon with guns, but you have all the same aspects of survival games. You have to craft, survive. You can even make a sweatshop of these creatures, apparently. In all, I think it's pretty cool that Pokemon is finally getting somewhat of a competitor. I know there's been other things like Digimon and stuff like that, but I feel like that was more an anime rival rather than a video game rival. Palworld releases on January 19th for PC and Xbox. It'll also be featured on Game Pass as a day 1 release. This next game barely missed the list, and it missed it just because I didn't play the first one. That game being Dragon Dogma 2. Dragon Dogma is a fantasy RPG set in an open world. If I had to compare it to games, I would say it's probably like a Devil May Cry combat with a little bit of Monster Hunter and Shadow Colossus. Honestly, it has a pretty in-depth class system, and it's something that's right up my alley, but I guess I just missed it way back when. Dragon Dogma 2 looks everything that it delivered in the first game, but just on steroids. It looks like a great game, graphically, great game. This might have to be a pickup. I'm just unsure about it just because I didn't play that first one. Now, for the last honorable mention, I guess I kind of wanted to end this video on a controversial topic, but that's going to be Suicide Squad. Now, in the past couple of days, a lot has come out about Suicide Squad. I'm talking about reviews. I'm pretty sure the NDA went up so everybody could give their early impressions and everything like that. But I think a lot of it is hate, to be honest with you. Like, there was a review on IGN specifically. It was probably the worst review I have ever seen for a game. Now, I feel like DC recently has been the laughing stock of superheroes, with so many other good superhero series coming out, with The Boys, Invincible, Marvel doing their thing. So I feel like this game is feeling the effects of that. People are just kind of hopping on the hate train, hating on it. Yeah, it does have a lot of red flags, like a lot of red flags. But still, I think it does have potential. I'm kind of rambling, but this game does have some red flags, but I feel like it's getting overhated. I understand that like there was stuff that people didn't like with the battle pass system, but it just seems like people freak out. They just have an insane reaction every time something is shown from this game. And I feel like we kind of should just take a step back and really analyze what the game has going on. Sure, there's some things that look pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie to you, but there's also things that looked pretty fun. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this game did look like one of those games that you could hop on and play with friends, but then again, I thought the same thing about Gotham. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. What games are you most excited for? Give me a list if you really want to. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you go check out my top 3 survival games just so you get a full idea of what's coming out this year, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.